Hello everyone, my name is Chance Gamble, and I will be discussing a 1301 composition course I've titled Rhetoric for Real Life. I believe the most effective form of learning is self-discovery. The truly enlightening relationships I've had were with mentors who guided me to my own conclusions by asking the right questions. That's part of what I want to do for my students. For me, the Socratic method has been very effective at intriguing and engaging listeners. Why is it that a question can trick us into paying attention? Perhaps we love both mystery and solving mystery. Of course, some things must be unlearned. I've always cared more about teaching students how to think rather than what to think. Thinking well is crucial in life and in academia. So I see the role of professor including instruction in the art of thought. All of this is a process, of course, and like writing, thinking well requires constant revision. I want to leave room for students to improve and never pigeonhole someone with a final judgment of their capabilities. One of my favorite professors was so incredible because she was able to gauge her students' limits and challenge them to surpass those limits. And that's a large part of my drive, to better people's lives through education. I believe teaching is one way to live a life that matters and makes a difference in this world. Each of these quotes correlates to a pedagogy I've adopted in some measure. Ionesco's point about questions aligns with Berlin's idea that truth is constructed through conversation. And while I do believe in absolute truth, the truth of a classroom often has to be agreed upon as a whole. It's a different dynamic than an individual worldview. Traherne's note on thinking well correlates with what I like about the ancient Greek conception of rhetoric. They communicated with great precision. Drawing distinctions between ethos, logos, and pathos can be a subjective experience, but it teaches analytical thought in ways few other things do. I haven't heard language the same since I learned how people were appealing to persuade me. Lao Tzu's journey is a perfect parallel to the writing process in both its infinitude and practical immediacy. No one ever arrives as a writer, but we can all travel to get better. And President Coolidge's quote is itself an example of genre awareness. It's not exactly a quote I'd pick for engineers or businessmen, but I want my classroom to be useful for writers of all majors, which means I need to teach genre awareness and adaptation at the least. With these things in mind, I aimed for a few core features in my assignments. I wanted students to care, and part of that will be my responsibility in persuading them of the work's relevance. But the rest will be their responsibility, and I think it will be easier to generate buy-in if students feel ownership over what they study. If they pick topics related to their major or intended career, they should be interested. It was also important to me that the assignments built on one another. This way we could create depth in what we learned without sacrificing breadth. That said, I was overambitious with my first syllabus. This generation and the ones to follow, particularly in East Texas, are unlikely to have the prerequisite knowledge needed to excel at college-level writing. I wanted to build in time for laying foundation wherever it's lacking. From sentence structure to paragraph organization, the initial summaries are short enough to provide plenty of feedback about student writing. Lastly, I wanted students to see how what they learned could follow them for the rest of their lives and be useful in a variety of situations. So I've started with summaries. Our practice run is summarizing a reading on being a freshman in college, and then I'd like them to summarize an introductory article to their major or field. After that, they summarize 2 more sources about something more specific in their field. Using those 2 sources, I then ask them to write rhetorical analyses. All of these assignments are only a page in length, which makes them manageable for myself and students. However, this length also requires tight writing, organization, and thought. From there, we move to a literature review of the introductory source and 2 articles. Notice that they haven't had to do much new reading, which saves time and allows them to become truly familiar with the sources they've chosen. And after these texts have been written and submitted, we will create a WordPress site where they can display their portfolio of work. I would like for them to briefly present their site in class, explaining why they chose their colors, layout, and any other design decisions they made. Each of these assignments would be workshopped in class before their due date, allowing for peer feedback and practice in revision. I've created handouts to guide students through that process and help them know what to look for and what questions to ask. My hope with these assignments is, as my syllabus says, to create a basic understanding of rhetorical elements and critical thought as it relates to text. I think the workshops will grow students' ability to write and revise collaboratively. I haven't directly discussed it because it's mostly a guiding principle, but my course theme, Rhetoric for Real Life, will include a short introduction and discussion each class period of some rhetoric that's affecting the world today. It might be a tweet or a Facebook post or a news clip, but I want students to connect what they're learning to the forces shaping their world, and that's part of my plan for doing so. Thank you for your time. I hope my presentation was clear, entertaining, and perhaps even enlightening.